Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bin Chickens podcast. I am Chris, and I have a special guest in the studio today. Air quotes around studio. Uh, my buddy Anthony, aka DJ Scenery. Anthony, how you feeling tonight, man?
Anthony Gabriel, DJ Scenery, all the way live. What's up, DJ Flintlock, man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. You had yourself a good day today, or what?
Yeah, top of the summer, Chi-Town. I don't know what else could be better.
I feel you on that for sure. Are you from Chicago? Like the burbs, the city? Are you from somewhere else? I don't even know exactly where.
So actually, I grew up in the northwest suburbs. I went to school in Gurnee High School. Um, so that's the area that I grew up in. I was born in Lake Forest. Um, and the thing is that I've had family in Logan Square, so I've been coming to the city of Chicago since way young, and so since about 11 years old is when I started getting into DJing, and that's when I would just come out here, ride the train and come out here and go to all the record stores that I love to, you know, follow through with my music.
Sure. What were some of the shops that you used to come back to back in the day?
So um, there was so many cool record shops. It was uh, let's see, Dr. Wax was over here, Gramophone, Hi-Fi Records, Secondhand Tunes, which is now known as Dave's Records, and any other miscellaneous record shops that I could go to.
Yeah, yeah.
I would
Uh,
just be in there for hours, just looking. you know.
now what kind of music were you digging for? What were you feeling?
You know, anything that sounded good, man. I really just smooth, high energy music that would just bring good vibes. I'm really into funk, hip hop, house, soul, EDM, um, anything. I mean, it just you name it, and I'm all about it. As long as I can vibe to it and other people can vibe to it, and how I could implement certain songs in my mixes. That's how I would get down. Just be looking for hours. you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
some of
now,
that some of that G funk as well.
okay, a little West Coast flavor.
Yeah, man, and there's like from the earlier days there was like a West Coast Chi-Town connection, man. It was like there's because if you look at like Snoop and a group like Do or Die, they sampled some of Snoop's lyrics, and it just was always sounding just cool, man. And they implemented the talk box in some of their music, which I play the talk box. If you listen to California Love by Tupac featuring Roger Troutman, the electronic voice that you hear there is the talk box, and I also play that as a producer. And it's just some of that smooth funk. You know what I mean? That's really what some of the music that sounds so cool to me.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you correctly included that it featured Roger Troutman. I don't think he
Uh,
gets enough of a shout out on that particular track.
Roger Troutman is one of my better inspirations. Because he actually started out with like George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic, who started out with James Brown, Bootsy Collins. I mean, I could just go on and on with artists that just really just are some of the greatest musicians I've ever heard in my life, and they've influenced me in so many ways when it comes to music, which helps me be open minded to other music as well. Now, um, both of my grandfathers were born in California. one in Burbank and the other in San Pedro. And one of the coolest things about it is that when I look at some of Roger Troutman's records and I see the studios that they were recorded at, um, there was one record in particular that was recorded in Burbank, California studios, and it's like, wow, is there some kind of connection here with my family and just the vibes that I get from all this music? It's like
Yeah.
it's like it's just so natural, and it's like, wow, that's amazing to me. You know, when I saw those credits on that record, I was like, whoa, what is that
Yeah.
about? You know, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just amazing to see that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, so you started at 11, the tender age of 11. What, like, did you know somebody who was DJing? Like, what made you get into, like, what made you decide, hey, I actually want to, like, I'm so into music, but I want to, like, actually, like, play music for other people and, like, learn how to mix and juggle beats and do turntablism and all that shit. What made you, like, think about that, especially at such a young age?
Okay, so well, it was like this. It was like around 12 years old. Um, so man, since I can remember, my parents have been the biggest influences in my life. Um, my mother, while she was cooking breakfast for me and my brothers, she would always play some kind of great music, you know, Saturday mornings, and you know, just have some great music playing in the kitchen. And so I would hear that. I would also hear my dad playing music. You know, he had all kinds of records, from like Earth, Wind and Fire to the Gap Band to Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton. Um, so I heard it all from my parents first, and I was like, wow, this is just incredible music. I love this music. It's just something, and I mean, it would just go from Latino music to rock to, I mean, just, I mean, anything almost. And so I saw those good vibes, and then also at some of the family parties on my dad's side, when we had family parties, you know, the family would just be so lively to some of the music that they were hearing. They'd be dancing, and it just you know, there's all kinds of good food. I mean, it was just so live, and so when I heard all that, it was like, wow, I really wanna get into this, and I want to understand music. How can I play this music? How can I figure out how to do this? Um, and so, uh, you know, I started learning about the elements of hip hop. So, so it started out with drawing. You know, I didn't really get into graffiti, but I started just doing cool drawings. So there's the graffiti element of hip hop, and then from there, it was like, um, wait a minute, what's this breakdancing? What's this about? Let me get into that. So I started locking, you know, like, you know, what some people call the robot and things like that, breaking. I started doing that, and I would just do what I could. You know, I started telling my older brother about this, and we set up cardboard in the basement, you know, to start breaking, and we did that at some of the family parties too. And so there's that. And then I was like, man, I got to take this to the next level. I want to keep going with this. So so then so then I was like, okay, well, let me see what's up with DJing. Let me see how I can get the party rocking myself and learn how to, you know, put mixes together that people can vibe to and bring back memories. And oh wow, you know that wow factor when somebody hears a song that brings them back, or it's
Yeah.
just a good vibe. So I would do, you know, I started, you know, figuring out how I would start calling equipment stores that I could find. It was actually, I picked up a Source magazine actually one day, and in the back of the Source magazine, you could see where there was DJ stores listed, and I was like, oh my goodness, here we go. So this is how I can figure out information. So I started calling some of the DJ stores, asking questions, And it's funny because uh, I would call so much and try to ask questions and figure out information. And then my mom actually called one day. She called one of the records or the equipment shops, and somehow in the conversation, I guess maybe through caller ID or something, my mom mentioned, she was like, "Yeah, my son's Anthony. He wants to get into DJing and this and that." And they were like, "Oh, Anthony? Yeah, he calls and asks a lot of questions about music equipment." So there was that, and then following that, my uncle Dwight, he goes by the name of DJ D, and he's still active doing his thing around Chicago. And you know, my family connected that made that connection, and it was like, he started showing me some DJ techniques and things like that. He's had a lot of series of the Pioneer CDJs. So I originally learned on turntables, but also he had with the CDJs. I learned some techniques through what he was doing, and so it was like I'm just learning all these different things. And so, I gotta say, my uncle, he showed me a lot of cool stuff when it came to DJing. So yeah, then from there it just it just it grew from there. I was just like, wow, this is something I got to continue with this. This is so it was through those steps and elements of hip hop that I just really got into it. Just doing research and having a passion for music.
Right, right, right. Um, so do you remember like your first setup? Like what was your first DJ setup? Do you remember like the specific turntables you had as far as like the model or the brand or the first mixer you had?
It was a DJ package from Music Factory in New York City, and I was shopping around, and I wanted to get some 1200s, of course, some techniques. But what I could afford at the time was I forgot the exact name of the brand, but it was something tech. So I forgot, but it was. I have a
Yeah.
picture of it somewhere. But anyways, these turntables were beginner status, and it was like they were belt-driven turntables, a mixer that it had these like transformer punch buttons. So it was like transformer switches, but they were punch buttons, so you could like they would do the same function as transformer switches, and it was a way to scratch. And so with these belt-driven turntables, and I'm so thankful that I had these as my first setup because I had to be so delicate with the way that I was scratching. Otherwise, the needle would skip for sure. It was like,
Yeah.
it was like, oh my goodness, why is this happening? So then I learned a lot about the functionality of turntables, and having belt-driven turntables compared to like the techniques is way different. So when you have the techniques, it's like they pretty much don't skip. So it taught me how to really be careful with how how it scratched, because I would record mixtapes on a tape deck that I had, and I knew that being live, I had to really just be careful how the way I mixed, because otherwise there was a possibility of the record skipping. So it really taught me to just really make sure that I was careful with what I was doing. And then so yeah, that was my first setup. That was like wow.
Yeah.
It's so cool to think back about that.
And so for those listeners who might not know the difference between belt driven and direct drive, like the techniques,
Right.
uh, so what does that mean? What does belt driven mean versus direct drive?
So as I would take apart my turntables, to either do maintenance or to clean them or whatever the case. So there's what you have is what's called a platter on the turn. That's where the record sits at. And
The big circle, basically.
yes, right.
Yeah.
And so there was a motor also underneath the platter, and this motor held like a little brass gear, And so there was a rubber band that attached to the brass gear and also attached to the platter of the turntable. And the motor would spin the platter with the rubber band. And so that's how that was, considered belt driven. That's how the belt would turn the turntable.
Right.
And then so there's that, and then you have direct drive, which is like just an electronic motor all the way, which had so much power, and it was solid. And so you wouldn't really have to worry about skipping, and it just was a solid turntable. And so there's a huge difference. But when it comes down to it, it's up to the musician, it's up to the DJ to make it work. No matter what kind of equipment you have, I have had to adapt. Like I remember, uh, and learning on my uncle's setup, which was the Pioneer CDJs. It's like, you know, find a way, or just maybe not DJ. And it's like, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to adapt. So I learned how to DJ on different formats, whether it was CDJs, techniques, belt drive turntables. It's like, just make it work, And so I really had to just go through lessons and try to make things work.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you broke down the difference between belt drive and direct drive because I actually probably, if you held a gun to my head, I probably couldn't tell you exactly what the difference was. I just knew that one was better and one was worse. But I couldn't tell you exactly why one was better and why one was worse. But so those bell driven ones, if you put your hand on the record, like you were saying, you had to be very delicate when you would go
Yes.
to scratch it or manipulate the vinyl itself with your hand. You had to
Huh.
be delicate. But like so if you scratched and then once you took your hand off the record, it would take like that extra like half second or a full second to get for that belt to wind back up and get back up to play the record at the speed that it was recorded at. Whereas, direct drive, you can scratch the shit out of it kind of. And like as soon as you take your hand off of it, the torque of that direct drive motor just powers it right back up to its normal speed, like you didn't even, slow it down for a second. So
that's true, but also that's a good uh, point you bring up. The thing is that thankfully these turntables weren't they didn't have that much lag. The first turntables that I started with,
okay.
so they were decent in terms of that, and where also some of the learning process came in had to do with slip mats. So so I was like, okay, so I have these slip mats, they're cool, but I'm like, man, how can I get these to work? Man, I kid you not, I tried all kinds of different materials. So the slip mats were felt that came
Right.
with the setup. But I would take notebook paper, I would take wax paper, any kind of material that I thought would make the record slide easier. And so I tried different things, and I found a couple different ways, and so it had to do a lot with that, in terms of how the record would slide. And uh, so I would just try to be innovative in ways that I could make it really as 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 smooth as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, the wax paper was a big deal for sure.
Yeah, some fun memories, man. I'm telling you what, it was like, just in the lab experimenting, man, just seeing how I could get it right,
Yeah.
and I made it work, man. I made it work for a lot of things. I did record some cool mixes, and I'm very happy that I was able to have something to learn on, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Now, did you like so you get into DJing, you're perfecting your craft, you're figuring out your shit, you're experimenting with different things. Are you like and you said you were making mixtapes like on cassette tapes.
Yes, correct.
So are you like selling these at school? Are you selling these to your boys around the way or you like, you know what I'm saying? Like how did you start to develop like a name for yourself?
Now, you know what I did? I just honestly, it's always just been word of mouth with me. You know, just telling people. I would play some of the mixes for people. You know, with people who had Walkmans. Hey, check this out. Listen real quick if you get a chance. But it would just be like, you know, me letting me know, or me letting people know that I was into this, and hey, check this out. And it would also, like, back to the elements of the hip hop. When I was locking and all that, and breakdancing, I would be at the school dances, and man, thankfully it was just like there would be circles formed around, you know,
Yeah.
and there was another homie or two where, they also got down, and so we would just be, showcasing our talents at school, man, and it just was so cool. I remember I just always tried to I just always tried to get involved. And man, there was one day, so this was in junior high school. It was raining outside, so we couldn't go out. We couldn't go out to recess. We had to stay inside. And so we were in the auditorium, and there was a that's where they did all the, theater and whatever from the
Sure.
school plays and whatever. And I saw one day, and I would bring my CD Walkman to school, which is funny to think now.
Hey,
I
hey,
would.
what was the anti-skip protection on that? Was that like the 30 seconds, the 90 seconds?
Yeah, it was something. It was something like that. Definitely, that was one of their marketing tools to
Right?
show you that it wouldn't skip. And that actually, there was actually a difference in some of the players for sure. Absolutely. So, but sometimes you had to hold it like you're carrying a plate or something to make sure it wouldn't skip. You couldn't hold it sideways. You had to hold it like
Right,
just
right.
straight up. And so I saw this mixer that they had. It was like a 12 channel mixer, an audio mixer that they had in the school. It was stationed there, and then they had monitors on the stage right and stage left. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you know what? I'm about to get something cracking here. So I hooked up my CD player. Thankfully, I had a cord. Somehow, some way, I had a cord to hook
Yeah.
it up to the mixer. And I turned it up. So now I had some music going in this auditorium where it was just, it was all of us just in there, just talking basically before that. So now I got music playing, and I decided to get up on the stage and start locking. And in front of everybody, dude. And now, dude, thankfully and humbly, dude, speaking, the crowd starts cheering. I'm like, whoa, what is this about? This is really cool. And it was just like kind of like at the school dances, people would be around, and
Yeah.
we'd get a circle formed, and um, uh, so I mean, it was so cool, and that opened my eyes to also want to make me take it to the next level. So I basically just put on a quick makeshift show real quick in front of my school, and that is also part of how I got into DJing, just putting on a show all the way live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you enjoyed the feedback that you got from the crowd. You liked being the person who was driving the fun, and you wanted to experience that high again. It's like a high that you get up there.
And you know what? That's exactly correct. But the thing is, it's really cool for myself. But to see people happy is one of the greatest things that I've experienced in life. To see people happy, to to see people's vibes and reaction from songs that you play or from a show that you put on. I mean, that's just like that's just amazing to me to see that. It's just you're just vibing with people in a way that's just cool with music.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Groove?
Um, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm thinking when you say that, I'm thinking of like Crush Groove. I'm thinking of
Oh, right, right, right.
yeah. I'm
Like
thinking of
Beat
Wild
Street.
Style. Yeah, Beach Street.
Right.
I just watched that recently. Actually, Beach Street. Um, what else? Um, yeah, Wild Style. I mean, all these movies that just was like, wow, this is amazing how this all started out, and just learning
Yeah.
these things. It's just really amazing.
No, so this movie came out in like 99 or 2000.
Okay.
Um, and it was about the rave scene.
Okay.
So, and it's one of my favorite movies. But so it's a simple story. It's about this group of people who are thrown on a rave in San Francisco, like in an abandoned warehouse. Um, just getting the party together, and then it just shows like, the DJs spinning during the show, and drama happens and whatever, whatever. But one of the DJs who spins at this rave goes up to the guy who kind of like put it all together at the end of the night. So, and the end of the night was like 6 a.m. the next day, right?
Uh huh.
So the DJ is carrying his crate of records out, and he's like, "Man," he's like, I know you went through all sorts of shit to put this show on tonight. Like there was so many like problems, and you kind of had to adapt on the fly, and like it just seems like a big hassle. Why do you do this?" And the guy who put it all together, he said, "I do it for the nod, like a head nod." And the DJ was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, it never fails. Every show I put together, there's one person who at some point in the night, usually at the end of the night, comes up to me, says, "Hey man, I really appreciate you throwing this party tonight." And then they just nod their head at me, and I nod back. Like that's
that's
what
that.
it's all about.
That's that
You know what
respect.
It's
Yeah.
it's that respect, and it's just like you put up with a lot of shit. You threw a party, and like for even one person to come up to you and on their own and acknowledge that, hey, I appreciate what you did here because I had a great time tonight. Like he's like, that's why I do it. That's why I put up with all the BS. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting the things that happen during the show and in times of setup. You know it's really just interesting to see all that can happen, and it's like, wow, like, and then that's where improvisation comes in.
Right.
It's like you gotta make it happen, or you're gonna tell the crowd, oh, show's over. Like I've never had to do that, thankfully, but
Right.
it's like that. I mean, I remember an event that I did kind of recently. So I did all kinds of prep for it, making sure that I had some good music together. I didn't organize my whole playlist, you
Right.
know, um, sequentially, but I just put a whole bunch of songs in a folder that I was gonna jam to, and so I did all that. Everything was working fine the night before, and then, dude, I get to the show and my hard drive's not working. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. I'm calling the local stores, seeing if I could switch out a cable, seeing
Right.
anything that I could do, just anything to make. I got to do something here. And eventually, because something told me, just bring through one of these new cables I had. It was in a package, hadn't been opened yet. Something just told me to bring it to the event. So I did some change ups in terms of the where I had my music and this and that. Plugged in the new cord, and now I'm back. I'm back live. Everything was fine, and it was just like it could have been a situation where everything could have just went wrong, but I
Yeah.
thankfully turned it all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So when I started getting into DJing, I was in Colorado. You know, I mean, I keep saying this, but it's just because it's so long. It keeps fucking with my head. It was 20 years ago that I got into DJing, right?
Okay.
So, so I worked for a time. I had like a 9 month period where I worked for a mobile DJ company in Colorado.
Okay.
So, we'd get hired out for, high school dances, college parties, bar mitzvahs, corporate events, weddings were the main gig that we got hired for. But it was any sort of occasion where you would want to have somebody playing music, we would get hired out for. Right.
Okay.
So now when I started with this company, I'd already been DJing at house parties on my own for like 2 years at that point. So I knew about, how to connect, the all the cords and all the plugs and all that shit. Like I knew what all that was, right? Because that's like the basic shit that you learn right at the beginning.
Right.
But when I got hired by this company, you had to go through 2 weeks of training where, you got brought into the warehouse where all the equipment was at, and you had to sit there and like learn, like, okay, this is what a line input is, this is what a phono input is, this is what a master out is, this is what a record out is. Like, you just had to learn all that shit. So he would teach this, the dude who was like the head DJ there, he would, be taking us through all these lessons and teaching you how everything connects together to make the sound work.
Right.
So then, as a test, he would teach you all this shit, and then he would send you out. He would send like one person out. Like if Anthony was in that class, he'd be like, "All right, Anthony, get the fuck out of here." No, he wouldn't say that. He'd say, "Anthony, go ahead and step outside for a second. I'm gonna fuck with the setup right here, and I'm gonna, unplug something or switch the phono and the line input. Like, he's gonna do something to where you're gonna come back in the room and be told, go ahead and start this system up and get the music going, but you have to troubleshoot on the fly because he
Right.
did something to fuck it up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sitting there and I'm just like watching this, and like the first like six people, man, I'm not exaggerating. The first like six people, like he did this 6 times in a row, like one person at a time. They would go outside, and he's like, "All right, I'm just gonna unplug the main power outlet." Like, he would just like take the main power plug from like the mixer or one of the CD players. He would just unplug something. Like, it's just the power. You know what I'm saying? So these people one by one would come in, and he'd be like, "Okay, go ahead and play music," and they'd press play and nothing's playing. So they got to troubleshoot it, and they're checking like the phono and the line, and they're checking the different knobs and the switches. They're checking the volume. They're checking all these things. And these six people were like, they were just completely flabbergasted. They're like, after a couple minutes of trying to get music to play, they would just be like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this music isn't playing. Like, I've checked everything. I've checked the levels. I've checked everything. Music should be playing right now. The CD is, you see on the visual display from the CD player, you see the music playing. You see it's going. You hear it in your headphones, but you don't know why it's not coming out through the speakers."
Right.
And so every single time for these six people, it was that he had just not even, they had never checked that everything was turned on. They didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't check that the
Yeah.
mixer was on. They didn't check that the CD player or whatever was turned on. So, and I'm just sitting there like I said, I've been doing house parties for 2 years. I'm like, this is so basic. Like, this is like the first thing you should check. Is everything turned on? Is everything turned on? So, but dude, so I did this gig this past Sunday at Rock Bottom, which is where we're going to be having the Bin Chickens vinyl fair.
Oh
I'm doing this
yeah.
gig there, and I've got this brand new mixer that I picked up from Newmark. I've got the CD, I've got the Denon CD player plugged in. I've got the levels all checked out. Everything's ready to go, and I'm playing a CD to do the sound check. Which you're doing the sound check before the gig starts because you want to play the music and you want to walk around the play space to make sure, like, okay, if I'm standing over here, how does it sound? If I'm standing over on the other corner, how does it sound? So I'm doing this, and like, I'm not hearing the music at all, and I'm seeing nothing on the mixer. Like, the levels aren't going up, like the
Right.
lights, you know what I'm saying? Like,
LEDs. Yeah.
the LEDs aren't moving, and I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, I just bought this mixer literally a week ago, so I know it's not the mixer. Like, the mixer's fine. I'm like, do I have a short in one of my RCA cables? Is there a short in the house system that I'm plugged into? What's going on? I was sitting there for a couple minutes, just like scratching my head, like, I don't get this at all. And then my buddy Kit, shout out to Kit McDaniel, he walks over there and he's like, "Yeah, so what's going on?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't understand why this music isn't playing, man. I don't know what's going on." And he just stands there for like 5 seconds, and he's like, "Is the mixer turned on?" like, like, oh man, like, and it was plugged in. But there's a power switch. You have to hit the power switch, and I hadn't even hit the power switch, and I felt like such an idiot because it's such a stupid mistake to make, and it was honestly the first time I'd ever made that mistake. Like, I never had tried to start music without making sure everything was plugged in the right place, turned on, powered up, all that shit. And this was like I was standing there like I was pissed because like fuck, the mixer's broken. I just bought it. What's going on? And he's like, bro, just turn it on.
Yeah, man. No, I understand that how that could be, and a lot of it happens with the flow of how the signal goes. If you just look at all that and follow through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's not always easy. You're thinking about all kinds of things. You're thinking about the event. You're thinking about making
Right.
sure that stuff goes right on time, and a lot of things can happen with troubleshooting. And yeah, dude, I totally hear you, man. I've been there, and it's like I tell myself in that situation, it's like I'm either gonna do this or go home. What would I rather do? So
Yeah.
it just comes down to making it happen with my situations that I've come across.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about and I literally mean a little bit. So I wanted you to get into maybe a little bit more in depth. You've had some pretty impressive gigs from where I'm sitting. Like you've
Well,
opened
thank
up
you.
for some, you know what I'm saying? Like, so why don't you talk about like, because you've got some experience. You've got some like you're legit. So why don't you talk about like some of your favorite gigs or like some of the biggest names that's like I know you've opened for some big time artists.
Yeah, and again, humbly speaking, thankfully to do so. I had the privilege of opening the show up for Wu-Tang Clan at the House of Blues, which was amazing. I mean, that
Yeah.
event was just so cool. And I went to Columbia College, and I graduated in 2012 with a business management degree. And during my time there, I'll never forget how this happened. One of my fellow classmates, he knew how I DJ'd. So again, it was all word of mouth. It was all, Anthony can get down. So I was just I'm thankful for the ability to do this. I don't take it for granted. And so he comes into class one day. I was already there chilling at my desk, and he goes, he right in the beginning of the room when he stepped into the classroom, he goes, "Hey, I gotta talk to you." And I'm looking like, and I'm kind of sitting towards the back of the classroom, like, okay. He sits down next to me. He goes, "Hey, how would you like to open up for the Wu-Tang Clan at the House of Blues?" I'm looking like, yes, yes, indeed. So he tells me that, man, and I was just getting ready to, from that point on, I was so just just thrilled, man. Like, I'm really doing something majorly hip hop right now. Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. It's gonna be me on the main stage opening for Wu Tang Clan. And one of the coolest things about it too is that I invited my parents, and I was living downtown Chicago at the time, and so I'm getting ready for the show, getting ready to go, and I took a cab over there, brought all my equipment, my turntables and mixer, and my parents, they had gone out to dinner earlier that night, so they were in the city, and this Wu Tang Clan, the crowd is some hip hop crowd for sure,
Yeah.
so it was like you know this is great. And I'm up in the balcony on the side of the House of Blues stage, and all of a sudden I see my parents coming through all dressed up, coming from dinner, and they're walking through the crowd. Like, oh my goodness, this is hilarious. And I told my homie, I was like, hey man, oh, it would be cool if I could bring my parents up to the balcony. Is that cool? And so eventually I was able to bring my parents up to the balcony, and so they had some nice seats as well. And next thing you know, I'm on stage. They're watching me open for Wu Tang Clan, and it was such an amazing experience, man. When I'm up there DJing, and you're on these turntables. There's no audio coming from the turntables because I was using Serato, so
Yeah.
when I'm actually using vinyl, you can kind of feel the vibrations of certain parts of the record, whether it's a snare hit or a kick drum. I can kind of
Yeah.
feel that like, okay, so I know what part of the record this is. But now at this point, I was using Serato, which is a digital vinyl system, and but man, I kid you not. So there's no sound coming from the turntables, but the sound system that they have in the House of Blues, you're on these turntables and you got all this power coming from what I'm playing. And then not only that, you got an engineer that's making sure your sound is right. I
Yeah.
mean, I think of uh, an engineer mindset as well in terms of when I'm mixing to make sure my levels are right. But then you got all this extra to help you sound good, and it's like unreal. I mean, it's just such an amazing experience with the sound, and then you see the people reacting. Like, I mean, I did so much to prep for the show. I did like talk box samples, like DJ scenery, and it just, dude, I did so much, and it turned out to be really cool, and it was a great night. I met all the Wu-Tang Clan, and everybody was cool. I got a couple drops. I got a drop from the RZA,
Yeah.
from Raekwon, and um, You God. And I almost had one from Ghostface Killer, but something happened with my recording equipment. And a drop is when one of these artists say, "Hey, check out DJ Scenery," and they do some kind of little saying real quick for you. So
Yeah.
it just was. They were just some of the coolest people I've ever met, man. Coolest homies I ever met, and it just, everything was cool, man. Everything was live. It's like, I mean, I was so thankful for that experience. My parents come through. I get to meet the group. It just was like, man, this is all the way live. This is amazing. So there's that from the House of Blues. Um, Another event I did was at the Funky Buddha Lounge when it was here in Chicago. It was a benefit for Darfur,
Okay.
Darfur, Africa. So that's really big time to me, man. When not only when you throw a party and people are happy, that's amazing in itself. But then now you're doing a benefit to help other people and raise funds or whatever the case. And so this event was actually with I was opening the show for Questlove, the drummer of the Roots, who now he's the drummer of the Jimmy Fallon Show.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. I was in the booth the whole time after my set. Saw him just absolutely rock the crowd. I mean, the party was just turned up big time, man. It was just live, and so that was such a great experience. And then all around Chicago, I've done events here and there. Some of the other cooler, notable events that I've done have been at Navy Pier on some of the yacht parties that they have down there. And like, I mean, it's just amazing when you're out on a yacht party. Like, for example, I did one for the Air and Water Show. That was amazing. We're talking about sunshine and just flyness all around. And another one was for a New Year's Eve event, and I'm talking, we're out there on the lake, and in between the cityscape and the yacht, they have fireworks going off. So you're looking at fireworks and then looking at the city in the background on New Year's Eve. I mean, I'm so thankful for some of the events and things that I've been able to do, man. Just
Yeah.
based off of my passion for music and what I've tried to do with it. So there's just to name a few. There's quite a few more, but yeah, those are some of the really awesome ones for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And did for that Wu Tang show that you opened for the Wu Tang, which it doesn't get bigger than that, by the way. It doesn't get bigger for hip hop heads than opening for the Wu Tang Clan. So that's definitely big time. But did your parents stay for the show? Like, did they stay for the Wu-Tang show, or did they
They
like
s- they
did they
stayed
peace
for.
out once you were done? They're like, we've seen our son. This was the best part of the show. We're out.
You know what? They stayed for quite a while, but just because just because of the drive that they had to, they
Sure.
they're living outside of the city, and it was already late. Like it was already getting real late, so they eventually had to get going. But yeah, they did stick around for a while, and it was awesome to see that. It's like my parents are here with me at a Wu-Tang Clan show, dude. Like,
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah, it was
that's
amazing, and
sweet.
and so as they sat up in the balcony watching things, I actually was on like I was on the stage, but kind of like off to the side while they were performing, and I was like filming quite a bit of the show, and dude, I mean, it just was electric in there, man. How the people were just vibing, and how it was just getting so live, man. And not only that, but I mean, dude, I gotta the DJ that was representing for them. I mean, everything was just smooth in the show. It was just
Yeah,
wow. This is amazing. So it was a great show, man. It was a great show for anybody to come and check it out, you know?
yeah, definitely. Um, and you were talking about the drive that they had to get back. Anybody who lives in Chicago, and by that I mean the Chicagoland area, which is huge, knows that driving into or out of the city is always a pain in the ass, no matter no matter what time of day it is, no matter what day it is. It could be a Tuesday night at 4:30 a.m. You're gonna hit traffic on 290. It could be Sunday morning at 6 a.m. You're gonna hit traffic. It's just a pain in the ass. It's
you
really
know, it's interesting that you say that because I've met a lot of people that come from Cali, and they have said that because I mean, a lot of people hear about traffic in LA and how it's crazy
yeah.
out there. I've actually driven in LA myself, and it is bumper to bumper sometimes. But then I've heard the people in LA that come and visit, they say, man, Chicago's got some traffic too, and I'm not sure anymore how to compare it. So it's like, oh, I was surprised to hear that. So it can
Yeah,
be.
yeah. So you were telling me earlier that you had some gigs coming up. Did you want to talk about that or give some plugs besides the Bin Chickens event, which you could mention that too. But what do you got coming up on the near future here?
Absolutely. So I got an event coming up this Friday, which would be June 7th, 2019, First Fridays, and that's going to be over at Output Lounge, which is it's right near Wrigley Field. And I'm not exactly sure about the times with that event, but it's going to be, if there's a Cubs game, we're probably going to set up earlier. And it's just gonna be and actually my uncle DJD is gonna be there, so we're just gonna be kicking it off live for the top of the summer, just enjoying an event right over there by Wrigley. So that's at Output Lounge, June 7th, uh, more towards the afternoon and evening. So that's gonna be amazing, and then of course following that, which I'm looking forward to all these events. But then on June 15th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, Bin Chickens is going on. Come out and dig, you dig? So that's
This sounds like an incredible event.
yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it, and thankfully to you and Julie, I was invited and to do a set, and I'm so looking forward to that. I've invited a lot of people, and it's gonna be that means a lot to me because first of all that you guys invited me to get down, um, but also Chicago. This is where I've come through since the beginning to spend hours and hours looking for my records, my vinyl. I started out with vinyl. Let me say that, okay? So
Yeah.
I definitely have done my work, and so some of the vendors from Chicago coming through to get down and have a record store day out there. That's amazing. So shout out to you and Julie for putting that together, and absolutely shout out to my uncle DJD for the other event. I just this is a great way to start the summer, and then following that, um, there's going to be an event at the Goose Island Barrel House, which is the 12th annual Goose Island fundraiser. It's Friday, June 28th, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. It is at the Goose Island Barrel House, 603 North Sacramento Boulevard. And the people who are running that event is going to be this Erie House organization, which is a charity for Chicago, and then also Goose Island. So those are some of the things I have coming up, and I am absolutely looking forward to each and every one of them. And I've been telling so many people, and people are looking forward to it. Anthony, send me the info. What's good? Let's go. Let's do it. So yeah, these are some of the things I got coming up.
Sounds good. That sounds good. Uh, so you were also talking to me earlier because we were going through some of my records. In the we went. You're in the studio now. Clear to everybody who's listening. You're clearly in the same studio space with me. So right next to the studio is where I had all my records and shit. And so we were kind of, having a drink, and I was pulling out records or whatever. So you were talking about how, as when you were coming up, and because you're a turntablist DJ. You're a hip hop DJ. There's a lot of scratching going on in hip hop
Yes.
DJing. Um, so the needle can wear out the grooves in records. So like you can,
Yes.
I mean, if you scratch the shit out of a record, eventually it's going to, it's going to play with more static. It's going to not play at all. There's going to be scratches, where the needle just skips when you're not even scratching. It'll just skip across the face of the record. So you would have to buy doubles of records that knew you were going to be playing through a lot. But you told me that you had even bought like quadruple copies of certain records.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I did. There was a lot of cases of that. I just would I would be intrigued by so many different records, and um, so I was like, and that came with time. That was like, because I didn't know that at the beginning. I would just
Yeah.
get records, and I would just start. Some of my favorite records I'd be mixing, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing this static, and then certain parts of the record it wouldn't play anymore. You would hear the song, and then all of a sudden you'd hear this static just overtake the sound or the groove of the record. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I got to make my records last, and this is way before Serato or anything like that. So buying records was where it was at for me. So I had to get multiple copies if I could, if they were available. And I just remember doing that with a lot of records, with hip hop, funk, whatever the case. Uh, just so many different records, but more in particular, actual scratch records or beat records, because there were sounds that I would find in the scratch records, and I would just man, I would just experiment so much on how I could scratch it or how I could mix it and incorporate it into my sounds. And next thing you know, I'm going through it. Man, I would do so much scratching and juggling with the music that sometimes my needles would just wear out. Even the needles would just, next thing you know, the needles floating all the way across the record because the diamond stylus wore out. It just was gone. It was like
The
no
needle
more.
just giving up. The needle's just
Yeah.
like out.
So I had to get, not only was I going through records, but I was going through needles, like the styluses,
Yeah.
like at a record pace. Like my goodness. So I was definitely spending a lot of money on all that. So but I made it work. I kept it going, and there's a lot of cool things about the differences in DJ tools as well, like from the different players and different styluses you could get. Um, so yeah, I had to be creative and think how I could just avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a list of like somebody says, Anthony, you've got access to your whole record collection. You can take as long as you want to find them, because I don't know if you're like me. I'm disorganized. I can't tell you exactly where my records are. But if they said, Anthony, you have to pick five records out because you're gonna play like a fucking 10 or 15 minute quick set. Do you have like a top five records list where it's like these are my jams, or these are my battle weapons that like these always rock the party, or I just love them so much that I am throwing this in that situation? Do you have that?
You know, that's a great question, and it honestly for me, the way that I could answer that the best is that it just depends on the party and how I'm feeling and how I want to get down, because it just totally depends. Because it's that's a very interesting question, because I used to be before Serato, and even with Serato, organization is key in so many ways. And with my record collection, man, starting out, I used to take a calculator and do like a, I don't know, some kind of one plus one or something like that to map out the BPMs on my own.
Yeah, yeah,
So I would do it for 60 seconds, which is beats per minute, and I would one plus one or whatever, and hit. I would hit equals every every kick and snare. I would, doom doom doom,
yeah,
just count out the BPMs. And so I would put stickers on all my records and mark them, and I would organize my records in terms of BPM or genre, or any way that I felt that was fit. So I would just organize the way I could. So within those different organizations, that's how I would go ahead and pick out my records. But you know what? It's like, it's almost like, because I've learned musicianship. I've learned music, um, musicality. So it's like when I pick any record, I understand how to work with it to the best way that I can, no matter what kind of record it is. So if I have to do some turntable drumming or juggling, or mixing, trick mixing, or whatever, that's how I just go about it. It's like it's like it's just like in the same sense of the DJ equipment that I'm given. If I show up to a party and then something doesn't, like one turntable doesn't work, I've got to figure out how to use one turntable,
right.
or what else can I do? It's like I've got to figure it out. So that's how it is with records too. It just totally depends on uh, what I'm feeling like at the time. You know.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. Um, that spirit of adaptation that made me think of this house party that I was doing in Colorado in 2000. Um, just had the two turntables set up, and I don't know exactly why. Maybe I didn't have headphones with me, or maybe the headphone jack didn't work. But like I couldn't use headphones. So like people who haven't listened to record players before, or who don't use turntables regularly, like when you put the needle on the record on a turntable, there's a small there's a quiet sound. You can hear it just from the needle itself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the mixer and the speakers amplify that sound, but you can just put your ear to the needle as it's going across the grooves of the record, and you hear the sound coming out. So I was sitting without headphones. I was sitting there like listening to the record I was queuing up, and like had my head to to the tone arm with the needle, like listening for how it was. Somebody came by, he's like, "Oh man, you're listening. Oh man, that's fucking sick." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not sick. It's just dumb because it's the only option that I had. It's either do this, or I have no idea, how to try to blend this or whatever." And I'm not saying I did a good job of it. I probably did a pretty terrible job of it, but um, it was fun that one time, just that one time, to like get your ear up to the needle, just like, oh, there's the music right there. I can hear it.
That's so cool that you bring that up, because that's one of the biggest ways that I've learned records, because even looking at the grooves, I could see certain
Right.
places where
Right.
the sound starts. And I'm telling you, man, I there's just something about me and music, and I could grab a record and feel actually where a kick would come in or a snare, and think about, okay, this is where this starts. Now I've got to make this work to mix in. Even if I was in a situation like that where I didn't have headphones, because I have tried to mix without headphones and just do things
Yeah.
with just limited, just to try it. And so so with that happening, I find the sound. Then now I got to adjust the pitch of the record to make sure that my mix is going to be cool or somewhat to vibe with. You know what I mean? So like
Right. Right.
that's actually a great way that I learned a lot of things actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So I guess I have. This will probably be, well, not the final question, but rolling here towards the end here. Um. If somebody came to your house and said, again, with a gun to your head, or a grenade launcher, or a, a, a
Okay.
machete, a machete, or just a large thumbtack. They're threatening your life. Like, Anthony, I'm about to steal every one of your records that you own, but I'll let you keep one record, just one, in your possession. Do you have a record that, like, you'll say goodbye to every other vinyl that you have except for this one record?
um, Interesting. You know, I've I've invested a lot of time and money into records, and I love them so much. Um, there's a lot that I would probably. I mean, I would say every record. Honestly, I'd be like, you're not
I
taking
know, I
nothing,
know that feeling. I know
you
that.
know. But honestly, I mean, really, it would be the records that I produce, that I make.
Oh, okay.
It, it would be those records, because I've made songs with, and I with this subject, this covers everything. Whether it's DJing, whether it's me producing my music, um, anything that has to do with music, I put my heart and soul into it, and especially my music that I create. And so I would absolutely have to say that it would be my music.
That's real talk right there. That's respect right there. I didn't even know that you produced your own
Yeah,
songs.
yeah,
That's
that's where the talk box comes in. I play that instrument as well, and I play the keys. I DJ. I got a little bit of guitar going on, but those are the instruments that I've chosen to uh, share my heart and soul for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and at the end of the day, that's what music's about, is heart and soul, right? I mean, that's why we love it. That's why we wanted to play it for other people.
Right.
That's why, you know, I mean, I was talking about this with you earlier before we did the podcast about, like, at the end of the day, I know the arguments. I know the old school versus new school arguments of, like, DJs who only DJ with digital music are whack. If you never learned on turntables, you're whack. If you only do commercial shit, you're whack. Like, I understand the arguments about, like, what is and is not, like, respectable, quote unquote, DJing. But at the end of the day, the music, as long as the music's playing and the music's banging, I don't care if you grew up on turntables. I don't care if you grew up on just digital media. I don't care if, you're Paris Hilton and you can't even blend. Like, you don't, like, if you select good songs and the crowd enjoys the songs that you're playing, that's the most important thing for every single gig ever. That's just the bottom line.
It's what you do with it.
Right.
That's what you do with it. If you got it, if you got, if you man, if you, as long as you get the crowd hype, and you make it rock, then that's what counts. Because
Okay.
because I started out with turntables for sure, and um, you gotta adapt. You gotta go with. I mean, you don't have to, but it's kind of cool what you can do as technology advances.
Yeah,
You
there's
can do
benefits to it.
you can do so many cool things with the technology now, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, if you want to use records, that's what's up. It's all respect, but check out what I can do with records and this digital system. Yeah, you know.
Right, right. So, um, so you got any like final like parting thoughts? Do you want to talk about anything that maybe we didn't touch on because maybe I forgot or maybe missed something or
Um,
you got anything left to say, Anthony? I mean, you got the floor right here, man.
cool. I appreciate that. So I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to God, the Creator, who I feel like has given me the ability to do this music and share it with people. I want to give a shout out to my family, who's always who's always supported me and had my back and helped me do the things that I do and been in my corner. Encouragement and love. That's amazing to me. I feel so blessed. Um, my friends, people that I know that just have just been so cool. I mean, just everybody's been so cool. It's just amazing to me that when I look at life, how really cool it is and how amazing that the experiences that I've had and the things that I have coming up, seeing the smiles on people's faces that I've come across. It's really amazing. And a lot of it happens to be through music. So I'm very thankful. I'm a very thankful individual, and I'm humble, and I hope that I hope I can share my parties with the world, and I hope that we can all have a ball.
That's what's up, man. I can respect that for sure. I appreciate. I didn't see it going that way, but I'm glad that you went that way because, like I said, that's real talk right there. So I mad
I
respect.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, man, I'm looking forward to throwing down with you. It's just a week and a half away, man. June 15th, Saturday. We're gonna be throwing down. It's gonna be great. There's gonna be great record stores there with I'm telling you, I know at least one of the vendors there. I'm not gonna mention it by name because I want you to just like dig through the crates and just be excited at what you're gonna find there. There's at least one vendor there who I know you particularly are gonna be like, oh man, you got some good shit here. So
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking forward to this event. I'm looking forward to hearing you spin. It's going to be great, man. And I just thank you for doing this podcast with me, man. This was a good conversation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it also. Thank you. Thank you for
Cool.
you know, inviting me along to get down at the show, man. Thank you.
For sure, for sure.
And
Uh,
shout out to you and Julie for sure.
Shout out to Julie for sure. Julie's the creative genius behind this whole thing. She's driving this thing. If we're gonna harken back to the beginning of the conversation about the difference between belt drive and direct drive turntables, I'm a belt driven turntable as far as this event is concerned, and Julie is the direct drive turntable. She's the turntable that you're trying to be like, yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's got the shit rolling and it's going forward. So shout out to her big time for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a good night and can't wait to see you there. And man, I'm looking forward to hearing what you're gonna rock. So you take care of yourself.
All right, brother. Thanks, man. I appreciate everything.
No problem. See ya.
All right, later.